Okay, hey guys, thanks for joining us here today. I got a really special guest. I want to introduce to you all Alex Buenos Santa Maria. Those of you in the Make Music Income Discord server, as well as the Academy members, know him as Alex B. He's a music producer, a guitarist, a teacher. He's been a very active member in the Academy since he joined, and I've had the pleasure of featuring his music on many occasions during the Academy Composing Challenge live streams. So many of you have probably already heard Alex's music at some point. He's shared a lot of his work in the Discord server as well. And just recently, Alex, your application to Motion Array was finally accepted after multiple attempts. And yeah, I just want to start this chat off by saying a huge congrats, man. It's well deserved. And yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Yeah,
So
really excited to be here. Thank you.
yeah, my pleasure. It's great to have you here, man. And yeah, I got a few questions for you about your life as a musician and music producer, but also about getting into Motion Array too. I think that some people watching will find it really insightful. But before we get into that, maybe just I don't know, tell me a bit about yourself, like where you live, your musical background, how and when you got interested in music production and all that.
Okay, yeah. So I'm from Brazil. I still live in Brazil, and I started working as an English teacher back in the day. I was just 16, and I just hit the ground running as a teacher. And my music background is not really it's nothing, you know. So great. I played the guitar. I used to play the keys, the keyboard, and but just for fun. I never had any formal education in music, and but I really loved music since I was like 10 years old, and I always had an instrument around in the house.
Hmm.
And I used to join bands when I was a kid. So when I was a teenager, I used to have a rock band and play in our parties with friends. Nothing serious, nothing so fancy.
Hmm.
But this is where I come from. But I've always loved to write music, and I've always loved to pay attention to the productions and to what things sounded like. And so every time my father would play records like Queen, for example, I would pay attention to the penning and how things
Yeah,
were
yeah,
happening in the recording, and that thing would drive me crazy. And I think this is how I fell in love with music production.
yeah. Cool.
Um,
Yeah, well, I guess we all know there's a rich musical history in Brazil, which is a blessing for you, I'm sure, and it's something that probably influenced your musical direction at some level. I imagine.
Oh yes, we were always listening to music at home. So there aren't any musicians in my family. So
Yeah.
um, I guess I am the first one who decided to put some effort into this. But uh, Brazilian music is everywhere
Yeah.
around
Right.
here. So you turn on the radio, the TV, and even the soap operas that are so popular here in Brazil,
Hmm.
they feature great music. So it certainly has an impact on everybody,
Yeah, that's so cool.
positive one.
So when did you start getting into music licensing? Yeah, how did you figure out that there was a music licensing world? Like who or what got you into that, and where did it all start with that?
So this music licensing world was something I didn't even know existed before 2020 during the pandemic.
Oh wow.
And I was just, all down to work and taking care of my business here, my classes and everything, and studying and the family. But suddenly we had that huge breakdown. Everybody had to stop
Hmm.
what they were doing, and the same happened to me. And I didn't have a lot of free time, but all of a sudden I had lots of time at home, and my instruments were laying around, and I decided to pick them up. And Daniel Carrizales was the first guy I heard talking about this,
Yeah.
and he was very enthusiastic, and it was very inspiring to listen to him. And you were one of the first people talking about it that I heard too.
Cool.
And so you both brought me into this in 2020. Yeah,
Cool.
then I joined your Discord server, and that was a real game changer because I got to connect with people in there. Because this is a very lonely world, right? This is this music licensing world as we do it in
Yes.
stock music or sync music. This is not something I can talk about with my band mates here. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. It is a very lonely world. So it's so nice to be able to connect with people online. And
yeah,
it's interesting that you mentioned Daniel. I mean, he was obviously the first person I heard talking about stock music too, and really is kind of responsible for me, first kind of having the motivation to put up some of my music on Audio Jungle and Pond 5 when I started out. And he's very relatable, right? Because he's he's a dad and he's got a family life that he balances out. And from what I understand, you're doing the same thing. You have have a family to take care of, and you're a full-time teacher. You're studying, and you're balancing a lot of things at the same time. So I think that's cool for to give context to that, for people to know that you're finding time somehow to do all of this. And balancing a very busy schedule. And I guess I'm sure a lot of people listening would probably relate to the fact that during the pandemic, at least initially, there was a lot of time at home, and that for me was something that kind of propelled me into the space as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. And one thing that I think is really cool about it is that talking about time, I learned how to make time for this,
right?
Because life will never stop to give you that time, that extra time you need for something you love. But
totally,
and I totally relate to you too. So I remember you saying that when you were starting working with this, you would wake up earlier in the morning and practice before going to work.
Yeah,
and I certainly sacrifice a lot of time before and after work to actually, it's not a sacrifice. It's something I do because I really want to. And it gives me a lot of, it's rewarding to do. And so sometimes I go to bed late in the night because I'm practicing, I'm recording my stuff, I'm writing melodies and things like that.
Yeah.
Or I wake up early in the morning before everybody in the house is awake and before my kid wakes up, and I just do the same thing. I use my time, and I make more time, and I stopped watching television.
Yes,
because every bit of time I have, I'm here in my tiny studio.
Going to bed late, waking up early. That sounds very familiar.
It's so rewarding, man. I've never felt so alive.
Yeah,
it's great. Good.
So, question for you: you've been in the Make Music Income Discord channel for a long time. You shared a lot of feedback with other people there on other people's work. You've received a lot of feedback from that community. Over the time that you've been in there, and you've also been a member of the Academy, for many months as well, and you've received feedback there, not only from me personally, but from other members there too. What are some key things that you've learned in the last year or so with regards to production, arrangement, mixing, that kind of stuff? Because I've heard this, amazing improvement in your work, and there's got to be like a few light bulb moments that have happened for you where you you've figured some things out. So like, could you kind of like let me know, or let the listeners know what exactly like a few takeaways, like a few key things are in terms of what you learned?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I mean, every interaction I had in the Discord and the interactions I have in the Academy are insightful. Every time we talk, not only to you, but to the members and everybody. Every conversation we have is rich in terms of insights and things we learn,
Hmm.
and they are really nice in that sense. But the very first thing I learned in the Discord community, it was over a year ago, was to get honest feedback and to give honest feedback.
Yeah.
Because if you show somebody a track and the person just says, "Oh, it sounds great," and it doesn't sound great, that's useless feedback.
It's not being helpful. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, man, and it takes time. It takes dedication to listen to somebody's music carefully and to craft feedback that will help that person move on and make improvements. And I had a few people in my journey that gave me that. And the first one was a guy from your Discord community called Wish Wanata.
Right.
It is somebody from Sri Lanka, and he's been away from
Yeah.
the music.
I haven't heard from him in a while, but I know
Yeah,
who you're talking about.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and his country has been through some huge economic crisis, and he
Yeah.
lost his job. And I talked to him a few days ago, and but he was that person who gave me that insight about being honest. So he reached out to me and said, "Hey, sometimes people just say, 'Oh, it sounds great,' but we know it doesn't."
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let's exchange honest feedback. And we've been talking for months, and I think that was really cool. And
Cool.
the same happened to a guy who is in the Production Music Academy as well, Mark Mess.
Yeah.
It's another guy from Brazil.
Brazil. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
lives in Canada, and great guy. Wow, that's a talented musician. He knows a lot about production,
Totally.
and he is willing to share honest feedback. I mean, everybody is right to a certain point, but when you get to the tiny details that really will take your track to the next level, you got to be committed to that. So this is one thing that uh, I brought to myself. To when I give somebody feedback, I try to be as honest and as thorough as I can, so I can really give a contribution.
Yes, yes. Well, that's so important, man. And I also had someone early on in my production, music career that was very, very honest. A couple people that were very, very honest with me, and it was very helpful. I really appreciated that
Yeah, that's really
honest
cool.
feedback. Is there, in
And
terms of
you
like,
do that too, right? Yeah, so
yeah, and I do that too, exactly, because
you do that
like I
too.
know how helpful it is, and sometimes you have to be brutally honest, but no one has ever
Yeah.
been, no one's ever had a negative reaction to that. I think people are very receptive to it, and yeah, as long as you're not, as long as it's objective and it's constructive, then people are very receptive to
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of like production stuff, like, is there anything that like you saw that you were doing wrong, like mix wise or anything like that? Was there anything that
Yeah,
like you're like, oh,
sure.
like,
Lots of things,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Yeah, I remember the very first track I submitted to the Discord feedback channel. Uh, you mentioned something about taming harsh frequencies
right,
in a synth, and it was something I wasn't really aware of, and so that led me to a situation where I had to study more about it, and something related to phase issues. I had never heard about it
yes,
in low frequencies, and this is something really technical, and it has to do with physics. And
yeah,
I'm far away from physics, and I had to go back and learn a little bit about it. And but one of the things about the licensability of tracks that I learned from the community, from you, and from those interactions was about how to arrange a track.
hmm
I had a hard time arranging them because when you come from the artistic world,
Yeah.
you have tracks of 3, 4, 5 minutes. Um, they're that long, and it's okay. They usually have lyrics, and it's fine. But when it comes to tracks that are going to be used as background in videos and other projects like that, um, 2 minutes is great. So sometimes it's too long,
Yes.
and that was something that was a bit hard to swallow because it's a completely different world, and it's something I could only get from people in the business. So I'm mostly grateful to that. And this is in terms of the technical aspects of music production. I think those were the the things that had me that light bulb moments.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, I'm doing it wrong. So
Yeah, well, I
so
think
fix.
there is a place for longer material in the licensing world. I think that, but yeah, like you said, it's there's a licensability factor to take into account with like the royalty free space, especially, and in a way, once you kind of embrace it, it actually makes things easier because
Yeah.
you don't have to like think about too much in terms of like a B section or bridge or like something that are things that are more typical of like like traditional arrangements of music. They can be very simple ideas that are sort of just distilled into like two choruses kind of thing. It can be very very simple, and those ideas tend to work really well in the space. So
I just remember one thing that you do in your tracks.
mhm.
It's about filtering the low end of every instrument, but not in a crazy way. I used to go so crazy about it that my tracks would sound so thin, so weak,
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, why does Steve's track sound so powerful and full? And I was just filtering too much.
you're just filtering out too much of the low end. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah, filtering out too much.
yeah, you have to make space for like you have to manage the low mids and the lows of the instruments that are building up. Like if you're using a lot of VSTs or a lot of instruments in your track, then things tend to build up in that range, especially say if you're using like string VST instruments, you tend to get like in the lower
Mhm.
register strings, you tend to get this crazy buildup in the low mids, and yeah, you have to manage that. But yeah, once you start drastically like high pass filtering everything,
Yeah.
then you're losing a lot of important information there, and it's a really fine line, and that's something that took me a long time as well to figure that one out. And man, you know what? For anyone listening, I think honestly the solution to that problem is just referencing. Like it's
Yeah.
really important to listen to other mixes, and just if you're constantly A/Bing, and I know you don't have to be constantly A/Bing, but if you have like sort of a reference track that you can kind of just listen to once in a while, if you're not sure about the balance of your mix, then you start to realize where things are going wrong by just
Mhm.
listening to another mix. Sometimes, at least that really helps me. I wanted to ask you about Motion Array. So, how many times did you apply to Motion Array, and yeah, why do you think they rejected your application initially? Like, what do you think is changed there? Like, give me some insight.
All right. So let's talk about motion array.
Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Uh, yeah, I've been like obsessed with motion array lately because this is where there is some something going on in terms of
There's some
royalty
action.
free music. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I applied 3 times. So the first time, what I did was basically see what were my best selling tracks on Audio Jungle. So I can't even say they were best sellers because they had like one or two sales, but at least they were best selling for me.
They were selling. Yeah.
And I put together a group of 5. So I prepared 5 of them and I
Hmm.
submitted. What I think was wrong there was the genres. They were crazy. Like I sent them 2 Asian tracks because they were best sellers at that time because of
Okay.
the Olympic Games.
Right. Right. Right.
and I just thought they were good,
Yeah.
and they were accepted by Audio Jungle right away. They, just got in, and they worked. And I sent them two or two of those two Asian tracks and a lo-fi thing that I didn't really know what lo-fi was, but I thought that was lo-fi. And another track, a corporate track, and another one inspired in the 80s. I think that was the first one that I
Okay, so
ever
it's all
wrote.
over the place.
So this is
First
all
time.
over the place, all
Yeah.
crazy, and just didn't work.
Hmm.
I don't even think it was the problem was the genres. So because the production of the quality of my productions at that time was not so good. I know that, but they are decent tracks anyway. But they didn't they didn't get them.
Yeah.
And the second time I sent, I decided to pay attention to the library to see what was going on there. And this is something I didn't do the first time. So I just, everybody's on Motion Array. They're making $20 a day, $30 a day. I want to get into that club.
Hmm.
And the second time I studied the library a little bit more, and I wrote an album of pop and lo-fi tracks that I thought would fit the library. So this is that was something more strategic that I did,
Yeah.
and they didn't accept the tracks. And I remember I was frustrated, of course, and I shared my frustration with everybody in the Discord at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember Eric said that those tracks were like too artistic for Motion Array. They probably would fit Artlist instead.
Interesting. Yeah.
But this is what he told me. But I know those tracks are just, you know, they could be better in terms of production, in terms of melodies, arrangements, and everything. But this time I decided to, this time I got accepted, and I decided to go simple, the simplest I could. And what I did was write four corporate tracks. And I was thinking of writing a fifth one based on, so based on reference tracks from Motion Array,
Hmm.
the most popular ones or the staff picks.
Yeah.
And I took your corporate courses and your corporate technology course before doing those tracks, before writing them and producing them.
Cool.
And during my process of production, I would always go back to your courses and check out how you do your things,
Sweet.
and I would apply to my music and to my production, so they would sound similar but not like a copy. So, but it worked. So
That's interesting. So
your
you're.
courses were like great, man.
Oh, good. I'm
I
so.
really have to thank you because they made a huge difference.
Dude, that's so nice. That's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting about, I think Motion Array is actually quite receptive to like artistic type of tracks, but I think that in terms of making like a really strong impression when you first apply, I think you need to send them probably, like very licensable material in order to get your their foot in the door. Once you're in, I think that they're receptive to lots of different types of stuff, because if you listen to some of their staff picks, or like, there's some tracks with vocals and stuff that's like that, it's
Yeah.
it's catchy and like licensable stuff, but it's like it's quite some of it is actually quite non-stock royalty free type music. It's very some of it's very artistic. Like if you listen to some of the music that like Mojo X, I don't know if you remember him from this guy. He hasn't been around in a little while, but he's sent some like just some crazy beautiful artistic stuff. And
Sure.
I think I know what Eric was saying is that I think you kind of like you have to sort of condense the ideas into sort of short, palatable, things that you can that would be really suitable for licensing. And it's interesting that corporate was the channel in which kind of paved the way for you to get in there. And I think that that corporate music is very, very popular on Motion Array. And I think it was a smart choice to kind of take that approach with your application, and I think that that they're very receptive to that type of style. But now that you're in, you can send them some lo-fi stuff. I mean, but like keep doing what works, but you should experiment too. I think now that you're in there, because you're writing amazing lo-fi stuff too, and like I think that
Thanks.
just because corporate music worked for your application doesn't mean I'm just thinking you shouldn't limit yourself to it completely, because you will go crazy if all you're doing is writing corporate music. I know you will, because you produce music in a variety of different styles, and I mean, one of the questions I had for you was, that now that you're in, do you plan on kind of sticking to one lane or branching out? But I'm sure that in time you will branch out.
Yeah, I'm still afraid of rejection motion array, because
Yeah.
I know it's not because I'm in there now that I can send them anything and they will accept. And actually, I just something just popped up here about rejection after you're in. So
Hmm.
I don't really know how it works, but they gave me 20 slots
Yeah.
for submissions, and some of them can be accepted, some of them can be rejected. So I want to play safe for now. So I think I'll just
Absolutely. Yeah.
have a small portfolio of the tracks that I think are strongest, and then I'll just experiment with other more artistic things. And you know what's crazy? They have those motion array requests,
Yes.
and they were requesting traditional Japanese music
Hmm.
last month. And,
Did you submit something?
yeah, and I thought, oh man, I had those tracks. I gave you those tracks a few months back, and
Oh yeah,
you guys
right.
rejected them. Yeah.
So did they
Uh,
accept them right away? Because they
uh,
accept those tracks and make them go live like right away. That
yeah,
you basically cut the
I'm
queue.
thinking about submitting mine.
Oh, you should for
There's
sure.
still there's a place to submit there. I
Yeah.
think I'll try them.
Oh, you should. Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
Just about your time management, because I think it's something that's so important. At least it's really
Hmm.
important for me. So you're a busy guy, and yeah, you're balancing the obligations of family life while also working full time. You're teaching, you're studying. I don't know if you're still studying, but
I am, yeah.
yeah, you're
I'm
still
getting
studying.
my PhD,
What?
third year in my research.
Yeah. What's the subject, just so people know?
Oh, I'm studying, I'm a linguist, so I'm studying metaphors in
Crazy.
argumentative language. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I'm glad we're not
But
having a
I
debate.
love it.
That's awesome, man. How often do you work on music, and do you have any tips for balancing your schedule with music production? Like what's your secret, man, and like what works for you?
All right. So I don't really work with music very often. So what I do is I just run away from from my wife and my kid for a couple of hours during the weekend,
Yeah.
and I lock myself in the office,
Yeah.
and I just I have to save some time for myself, and this is the agreement I have with my wife. So she saves some time for herself. We're also cyclers. We ride our bikes, so
Oh,
we have
cool.
those two hobbies. Less so they're hobbies, and we help each other. So we have a 5-year-old boy,
Hmm.
and we take care of him, and he's an only child. He's a great kid, and he doesn't really give us a lot of trouble, but it's time consuming to
Hmm.
have a kid. So what we do is we help each other. So she takes care of him and takes care of other stuff, so I can have my time for my bike riding and for my music production. And she's always been a very uh, supporting partner when it comes to music. She knows I love it. I
Hmm.
used to have a rock band with my friends here, but the pandemic destroyed everything. We couldn't move on with it.
Yeah.
But music is something so important to me that I just decided that I will never let it stray away again. So this is something we do. It's usually during the weekends, Saturday or Sunday. I just lock myself here in the office for 2 or 3 hours to get something, to get ideas recorded.
Yeah.
Then during the week, the Monday through Friday, I sometimes stay up late or get up earlier,
Yeah.
and I work on the production, not in the composition. Not I can't write during the week, but I can mix, master, edit, and do other things that are not so creative. I mean,
Yeah.
they are creative, but it's not uh, writing. And this is how I do it.
That's so
This is
cool.
how we can balance. And I must say that we will never have that perfect time in our lives to do music or to do anything we love, anything we want. We have to make room for those things, and sometimes you have to be strong enough to have other people respect that, because people, when I say people in general, but when I talk to my friends and family, they tend to think that I'm just playing around with my instruments
Hmm.
or just having fun, and it's
Hmm.
nothing important. You can just let it go, right? But I say no, it's serious. This is kind of I have this kind of work approach to music,
Yeah.
and this is something that I developed after I joined the communities, both in Discord and in the Production Music Academy. And so, if you don't take it seriously, nobody will,
Yeah.
and you have to take it seriously if you really want to take that path and take that journey. And I want to do it seriously. I really enjoy this, and so it's working, right?
Yeah.
I can see a lot of improvement. So it's been just I was actually checking out my Audio Jungle account, and I got there in February of 2021.
Hmm. And
So
what do you think when you listen back to your the first tracks that you put up there? I mean, do you hear the
yeah,
improvement? Yeah.
I hear a lot of difference, and but it's been so fast, right?
Hmm.
Especially, this is something I would like to mention, that as I said earlier, it's a very lonely world, and when we get together and things just move so quickly, it's crazy how fast we can improve
Yeah.
if we have that honest feedback, if we have those great courses that you put out. And so if you really want to do it, go ahead and join the communities and invest some time and money in the courses. It's totally worth it.
I think that is something that gets people down is that they compare themselves often. We compare ourselves to others who are so much more advanced in their careers and they spent so much more time doing things. So when I first started, working on music production, I would listen to, some of my favorite artists and composers and stuff, and it would feel very overwhelming because, I just couldn't imagine how I would get there. And I think it's really important to try not to compare yourself to others so much as you should be comparing yourself to how you were doing, yesterday, a year ago, 2 years ago. So sometimes I listen to my mix, the tracks that I have up on Audio Jungle, and I'm like, oh my God, I've done some improvements. Some things have really improved. And it's so much, it's really important to just listen to look at your own trajectory and your own improvements over time, rather
Yeah.
than constantly comparing yourself to the best in the world or people who have been doing this for like 20 years of stuff, so like you will learn, and you will learn quickly, like you said, I think, if you apply yourself. But I think people get really down on themselves about the rate of progress. But it's like, when we listen to these incredible mixes from our favorite artists, I mean, it's like you're listening to, not sometimes you're listening to a group of people who are combined, tons of experience into like one song, or you're listening to great engineers, great producers as well. But it's overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people when we compare our own work to like I said, our favorite artists, favorite composers and stuff. It's important to remind yourself that you will get better, and just listen to a mix that you did a few months ago. Even for me, I still hear improvements all the time in my work, and it's because I'm applying myself like daily, right? So and yeah, it's amazing the amount of improvements that you've been able to apply to your own music, and considering the amount of time, the limited amount of time that you have to work on this. But the important thing is, I think, that you do it regularly. It may not be a lot, it might not be every day, but I think you apply yourself regularly, whether it's just like one specific time during the weekend where you get to carve out a little space to be creative. You're committing to that, and I think that's the most important thing, because everyone has a different schedule, everyone has different obligations in their life, and some people just are not able to do this like every day. I totally get that. And yeah, even if you're able to do it once or twice a week, I mean, I think you will make huge improvements, like you said, if you just take it seriously. So for anyone who's trying to apply to Motion Array, maybe you could offer some advice there in terms of or some encouragement. I mean, really, you've really been incredibly impatient. You've been patient with the process and persistent. I mean, is there any words of wisdom that you could impart to people who are still trying? Because I know a lot of people listening are probably still trying to get in there, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, and the first thing was, I would say, is learn how to manage your frustration, because rejection is just a huge part of this game. And so you should learn to manage that. It's gonna happen. I was rejected twice there, and I didn't mention this to anybody in the community or anywhere, but on the same day that I got the acceptance from email from Motion Array, I got a rejection from Mark List.
Oh, you did? Oh, really?
I applied too. Yeah,
Huh.
I totally expected that, but it's just part of the game.
Yeah.
Right. We get rejections everywhere, and what those rejections can do that is really bad is make you give up.
Totally.
So if you really want to do this, if you really have that goal, just keep doing it. You're gonna get in eventually, not into Motion Array only, but into any other library or any other place, if you keep doing. Eric says that too. So those guys who are gonna be making music 20 years from now are those guys who never stopped. So
Yeah.
if you want to be one of those guys, don't stop, because it's tempting. Sometimes we get so frustrated. I was talking to Mark the other day, and he was like, "Oh, I don't really have any motivation to write anything," because he's not on Audio Jungle, not on Motion Arrays, just working on Pond 5, and there's not a lot of traction in Pond 5.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of sales, you don't see it pay out very often, so it's really frustrating. But just keep going, especially if you have another job. It's good that you have another job.
Right.
Some people just want to, I want to give up everything and go full time on music, but it's a really hard thing to do. You're one of the rare people who could do this, and you just had to do so much in order to make a living out of this. And I'm really glad that I have another job because
Totally.
I can, take care of my bills and everything, and still make my music without that pressure of, the financial pressure and everything.
Absolutely.
But this is it.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
keep going and keep it simple. Man, this is probably the biggest thing. I went from all over the place in my submissions to one genre. Not even the five slots they gave me. I just gave them four tracks, and that was it. So few tracks, but strong tracks.
Oh man, yeah. There's so much I'd like to say to that, but I'll cut myself off. Otherwise, I'll rant on forever.
Come on.
But man, yeah. No, I mean, just what you were saying at first with rejections. It's like, it's just, yeah. You got to be the kind of guy that's going to allow the rejections to be the fuel that fires your motivation to do better, because preceding all of some of the success that I've had with music production in general has just been so much rejection, a lot of failures. I've had contracts fall through. I've been fired from from projects. I've the first library I worked with was a total failure. A lot of rejections. I had one or two tracks that did well, and then I was failure after failure after failure. And like you said, I had a job at the time, right? I had a 9-to-5 job that was my security. And it was so important for that I had that, because it took the pressure off of everything else. It's like now, with doing music full time, there's a whole new set of pressures that exist, and I have to, work really, really hard in order to create that security blanket. And then there is no regular, a check coming in like there used to be. So I have to, I'm on the. There's an extra sense of pressure with music, and it's a different dimension to grapple with that. But man, yeah, you gotta, at least initially when I started doing this, there was a lot of I got a lot of honest feedback, and sometimes it was brutally honest, and a lot of rejection and a lot of failures, a lot of missed opportunities. And I never let it get to me too hard. I mean, it was difficult at times, but it was always kind of like, okay, man, like time to regroup and figure this out and get better, because this it wasn't going to drag me down. And ultimately,
and those rejections are not personal at all.
They're not. No.
Those people don't even know you.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just listening to your music. So
exactly, man.
Those are honest rejections.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's like we can't. It's a business, It's a business. People aren't here to be nice to you. It's it's either your music is going to work or it doesn't. And sometimes your music can be good, objectively can be good, but it's just not the right fit for whoever's listening to it. So, that's something else that we didn't talk about. But your first two applications, you might have just had some reviewer who just didn't dig your music for whatever reason, or they're having a bad day, and that happens too. On the other end of this, there's just human beings, and they got to make a judgment call, and they have opinions, and they have bad days and good days. So maybe it just didn't hit them in the right way for the first time. I was surprised that your second application didn't get through, to be honest. And same with we have other members that have sent me their applications and had me vet them, and I was I've been pretty sure that a couple of them were going to get through, and they haven't. So I'm always surprised sometimes. It's hard to say. Thank you, dude. Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. I wanted to finish this chat by just asking, where can people listen to your music, man? And where can they connect with you online?
I have a website. It's alexbmusic.com. Another great piece of advice I got from you: get a website done professionally.
You're using Wix, right? Is that what you use?
No, actually, I upgraded to another system.
Oh, cool.
And so this is a little bit better. And this is it, alexbmusic.com. I don't really do social media or Instagram or anything, so I don't really have the time to manage that.
Yeah,
so
fair
I
enough.
decided not to start something I won't take care of properly. So the website's something I can manage. And I have links to my YouTube and to my Spotify and everything, samples of my music and everything there.
Okay, I'll link those all in the description below, man.
Great, thank you,
dude. Thanks so much
for having me, man.